Hey everyone, so now this is the part where we're discussing Farringtons. Basically, we have Ryan Pine from CEDO here, who has been kind of very heavily involved in the process, and a number of residents. So as a kind of format, we were thinking Brian would give kind of an overview of where things are at with the kind of legal situation and all of that. And then any of the residents have any particular sort of things you want to kind of say about what's going on and ways that the community can be engaged, and then following that, just general questions and conversation about this whole process.
I just want to say as we start this out, Brian Pine has been with CEDO for many years. I just want to let the crowd know tonight that Brian is leaving CEDO after how many years, Brian?
18 and a half.
And Brian has done a fantastic job in the city of Burlington. That is really good.
I appreciate that a lot. It's, Lee sent me an email saying my career has come full circle. She didn't even know that my first job in housing was in 1989 to go work with mobile home residents in East Montpelier who were faced with the exact same thing Farrington was faced with.
Brian, I did know that.
You did? I thought that was incredible, Lee.
I'm old.
Well, anyway, it was
the first settler.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was, and it's. I actually am moving on with kind of a bit of a heavy heart in a way, because the work that our office does, and the work that I get to do, I feel incredibly lucky to be able to do this and to be able to work directly with Farrington residents is probably the most rewarding part of my job. I just came from a meeting in Northgate where I serve on the board as a community rep, and it's 9 or 10 residents and 3 or 4 community reps. I'm one of those community reps, and I've been doing that for the last 8 or 9 years. So I'd say with the Farrington situation, I think residents have a pretty good idea, because we had a meeting last Tuesday where it's at, and it went very well last Tuesday at Heineberg, and a lot of questions were asked, and I think a lot of information was provided. Hopefully it made the process clear to folks. And in the end, the group, about 50 households, it's basically a household gets a vote if you are a homeowner, is the way it works under state law. And about 50 households were represented, and 38 voted in favor of going the co-op route. And I'll tell you more about the co-op route meetings. And another 11 chose to kind of keep their options open, go either nonprofit or go co-op. And I think one person said he wanted to just go straight to the nonprofit route, and he admitted because he didn't want to go to any more of these darn meetings. But it was honest. It was great. It was great. That is a real concern, because with co-ops, it's like any other democracy. It is truly controlled by the people. So if you don't want to do that, and you're not into going to meetings, then I can see why he would have said that. So the residents overwhelmingly chose to go the co-op route, and since then, it's only been a little over a week. I think 80 of the 100 eligible households have signed the petition to go to the co-op. So just quickly, what does that mean? Pardon me?
They had 80 signatures now?
80 household signatures, yeah. So what does that mean? Let me just say that the idea of cooperatives goes back 200 years to England, really. It was weavers and groups who got together and said, we can actually own this as the producers of this product, and probably be better off than if we report to these bosses who don't seem to care about us. So that's the idea of what co-ops were. They were truly the most grassroots, democratically controlled institutions. And so we have them in Vermont. Cabot Creamery is a co-op. Many people don't know Land O'Lakes is a co-op. City Market, of course, is a co-op. There are housing co-ops across the state. Interestingly, our neighbors to the east, New Hampshire, has pioneered this notion of mobile home park co-ops. The idea is residents already own their homes. They don't control the lot and the property they live on, but they own their home. And so rather than have absentee owners, nothing against them, but rather than have absentee owners, residents will have a real stake in maintaining the infrastructure, improving the property, keeping lot rents as low as possible, selecting residents based on who would be contributing members of the community, certain standards. And so they have, I don't know the number in New Hampshire, she said last week, over 100 anyway, well over 100 parks that have converted 25% of the parks in New Hampshire are owned as co-ops. So this concept is not a,
And a few in Vermont.
there's a handful, 6 in Vermont, that's right, yeah. So, the biggest one and the first one in Vermont was in the early 90s in Brattleboro. 3 parks that were located right adjacent to each other but were separately owned, all formed a co-op, and it's about 330 homes. That's a big one. As you might know, Farrington's is 119 lots. A couple to 2 or 3 are not lived on anymore. There's no one in them, and there may be a few more that probably should go as far as the conditions of those homes. But the rest, 100 of those are owner-occupied. And there's a handful, about a dozen or so, that are owned by, what do you call maybe investor owners? Owners who don't live there, and they just rent them out. So those are truly rental units, and they're treated like rental housing. They're inspected by the minimum housing inspectors like any other rental housing unit. So I got a question from somebody about how come there's no inspections of the homes that people live in? Well, the answer is the inspectors don't come to your house to inspect your owner-occupied home. They're not going to be going into mobile homeowners' homes and inspecting them for code because that's their home. So the city doesn't inspect owner-occupied unless you're pulling a permit to do construction. That's different. But
Unless it's absent to your.
exactly, the investor owns get treated like any other rental unit. They have to be registered, they have to be inspected, and they have to maintain it. So the next step is to do the feasibility work, which is look in the ground and see what the infrastructure is. People say there's code violations. Well, we don't know about that. That's just sort of the rumor is, oh, there's a lot of things that aren't up to code. But I know people who know the park really well who say that's not the case. I also know there's engineers who are going to figure out, is the sewage system adequate? Are the water pipes, are the services to the houses adequate? Are there infrastructure needs that need to be addressed in order to make this not just a solution for today, but a long-term solution? So when folks live there, they know that as long as they can maintain that home, it's going to be there for the foreseeable future, and their kids and maybe even their grandkids can live there for long term. So I'm very optimistic. The Farrington family has a purchase or an asking price of $5 million. The next step, in addition to doing all that infrastructure work, is to crunch those numbers, and that's what's happening right now to figure out what is the price that could be afforded and keep the lot rents where they are now. No one has done an appraisal. That price is just what they believe the market would bear for the property. So that's their asking price.
It's assessed at 1.9 million by the.
Yeah, that's a good point. The city assessments aren't always the best indicators of values. My house is actually pretty close to what I think it's worth, but I know some are way off. And this is an unusual property because it's kind of considered commercial, but it's zoned residential, and it's just a little bit of a hybrid. There are other parks nearby in Milton, the co-op in Milton. I want to say they paid for 99 homes, for 99 lots, they paid just under $3 million. I think 2.9 million for that park. So the $5 million is definitely quite a bit more. The conditions may be better. It has all municipal services that other parks don't have. So if you have a septic system, that's a fortune to fix a septic system. It's considerably more expensive than even if you have to replace all of the sewer connections from each home to the city's sewer pipe. That's going to be a more affordable option than replacing a septic system for a park that big. So, yeah.
Can you also talk a little bit about the financing piece?
Yes, the financing is key here. Jason asked about assessment. Appraisal is what's going to determine what they can pay for it. So the appraisal is based on what's called an income approach. So, if you go to sell your house and you live, on Farrington Parkway, they're going to go and look at other houses in the relative vicinity that are similar and do an appraised value based on other properties selling. The income approach says, well, if people are paying $310, $315 for lot rents,
315 next month.
315 next month.
so if they're paying that and there's X number of homes, you have an income. You know what the income is. You make certain assumptions about expenses. You know what the property taxes are, and you kind of back into the value based on that. So that's what's going to happen next. Is an appraisal will be prepared to say, here's what it's worth based on that income approach. It'll be a negotiation between the Farrington family and really the residents working together and with support from this group that does this in our region called the Cooperative Development Institute, and that's something they've done in many other cases. I think they've done themselves have done about a dozen parks like this. So the hope, I think, it's looking pretty good. to have the residents come together like that was, I felt the energy in that room was pretty amazing that night in terms of, we can do this, guys, we just have to, join together and believe that we can pull this off, so.
I think one thing to note too, though, the engineering work is gonna make a big difference in what.
In the price.
is gonna be put. Yes.
Exactly.
They may say it's worth $3 million, but if there's $1 million worth of repairs, then you're gonna pay $2 million for it.
That's where that's getting a big
I do
complicated.
think it's not in good shape,
It's-
but I
it's-
remember my days.
The way the law works is the residents have the right to make an offer, and the property owner could basically turn them down if they're way below what he's asking. So there's some tension here, but we believe that the appraisal will actually reflect the conditions as well. So you don't have to wait necessarily for the engineering report to know about those conditions.
They don't know what's in the ground.
You don't know what's in the ground, absolutely. Yeah.
But this rock group,
ROC stands for Resident-Owned Communities, and that's the
Yeah.
group out of New Hampshire.
right, and then the network.
They provide financing, thank you, Joanna, that's good. Their financing is, say the property comes out at $4 million in value, they can finance $4,400,000 because they have capital that is loaned to them for the purpose of doing just this, that's what the money is for. So they have banks and foundations who want to see this work happen, and they've created this pretty sizable, over $100 million national pot of money to do mobile home co-ops, that's all they do. And so they provide 110% financing. That extra 10% is used to build up a reserve account, so that if something goes wrong, you've got a cushion. It's also there to do infrastructure improvements, like the engineering report will hopefully show what needs to happen, and then you have at least, you have some money in the bank to do that work as well. Jason again.
I'm just curious, say it was $5 million, does the math work?
Can't tell you that tonight because that's what the Cooperative Development Institute, that's what they're doing.
Because the 5 doesn't work.
Pardon me?
You're not gonna have $300 a month lot rents at $5 million amortization. That doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't think that math doesn't quite, it's gonna be
Yeah.
less than that. Roy?
Brian, how's negotiation work? Do they have like a representative from Rock USA speak to Rob Farrington? How's that work? Do we get together, have a meeting?
I believe it will be,
Negotiations work.
I believe it will be a negotiation team that will be residents and ROC staff will meet with the Farringtons and work this stuff out.
And of course, it's not the
Yeah.
Barringtons, it's their group.
Probably the broker
Sloan,
with one of the,
whatever.
I'm sure someone from the family's gonna wanna be at the table. Yeah. The 4 siblings there that are looking to make this sale happen, so, yeah. The Farrington, family has owned it, I believe, since around the
1800s.
late 1800s. And I knew Sandy, I didn't know her well, but I worked with her, actually with Jay many years ago. And I know Sandy cared deeply about the people living there, she did. And she wrote it up specifically in her will that it would be sold, and it would be sold as a mobile home park. So,
If anybody's interested in the history, you just Google Farrington Park UVM, and there was a UVM student that did a history for the Historic Preservation Department, and it's fabulous. It's got lots of pictures. It goes all the way back to Mr. Bro and Mr. Farrington, and it's fascinating. And there's a link on our website.
may have been the first, I think the first mobile home community in
It was.
Vermont.
Yeah. Itinerant gypsies.
Is that what they say?
Well,
That's just that you're, yeah.
he wanted his friends to be able to live there, and it
Yeah,
started out
in the
like a
back.
fishing hunting
Yep.
camp, and then it.
Do the residents have a lawyer? Do they currently have a lawyer?
I don't believe the
Lawyer
residents
on
have a
their
lawyer.
side.
I think we're represented through CDI.
Yes.
If we choose to go that route,
Yeah.
they cover that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, and Jay made a really good point right there. See, Cooperative Development Institute has access to resources, shall we say, to pay for appraisal, to pay the engineers, to do a lot of work, a lot of legal research and all that. And the way they structure it is, that money gets rolled in if the project goes forward, if they end up going forward and buying into co-op. If something were to happen, it doesn't go forward in that way, essentially they give up that money. It's risk capital, basically, can be spent, and that's a big jump start in the process, is having that resource to do that. So,
With the footprint of the land and in fairness to the residents, are there any rumors of
great question. That's definitely one that I think is 11.1 or 0.2 acres total land there. Zoned residential medium zoning, which means you can take 20 housing units per acre. So theoretically, 220 homes as opposed to the 119 that are there now.
Wetland?
I don't believe it's any wetland.
No.
However, has a lot coverage limitation. And residential medium lot coverage is, so take this room, say this is your lot, you can only cover 40% of it. That includes roads and homes, sidewalks, which there aren't any, but any of the roads would count as well. So any structure counts as lot coverage.
What if they turn it into a PUD?
That might be an option. That could be an option. I would say that planned urban development, yeah, planned urban development.
All of those zoning regs with setbacks and coverage that goes out the window.
Yeah.
They currently are, because we're actually mandated through state law. They cannot uphold any setbacks. The only setbacks we have to maintain are a 5-foot setback for fire code and the outer perimeter of the park adjacent other property. Because we're mandated through state law as far as setbacks go. So as long as a mobile home has a clearance of a minimum of 5 foot on all sides, that meets fire code, they cannot mandate anything else. They did try that, but it didn't work out because of that state law.
I don't know that it's actually the question I think most people have is, isn't there someone waiting in the wings to buy this for some other use and just move the mobile home park? I have not heard that that's the case. It's very, very unlikely that that can happen in any reasonable amount of time. So if, for instance, the sellers want to get their money out of it in the next year or two even, and they went down that road, it would take, they'd be looking at challenges all the way. I think it's fair to say that there'd be some major political obstacles to making that happen. They'd be looking at years down the road.
Thrown up by
Yes.
all the people.
All the people saying right here, yes, yeah.
Really?
Vermont legal aid, I mean, they can make your life pretty difficult. And they would step up and make their lives very difficult. So, it's a great question. It's definitely, it's out there as a slight possibility.
I'm not a prospective.
I understand.
Just-
Yeah, no, I get it. Totally get
Just
it.
well throw it out there and see what's.
Yeah, yeah. That was a question that one of the residents asked when we met. And we had an early meeting a month ago because it wasn't really on the market yet, but we were sort of doing like our planning, and Terry LaFave showed up, and she asked that question exactly, is what if a developer just waits in the wings and is gonna pay the full price and they don't have to negotiate and all that? So the state law is set up so that it's really challenging to do that.
There's an 18-month wait.
For closure.
Even if they wanted to go over by 5%.
The 5 million, yeah.
Then.
Yeah, they'd have to, yes, it's an
we would
18-month
get.
closure. To close a park for some other purpose, you have to wait 18 months after years of going through this process. So
And
it's,
then we
it's
start the process all over again.
exactly. Yeah. Steve.
Some of the frontage on North Avenue, is that commercial zone up front? The whole thing
Entire property
residential?
zone
Right to the
residential.
curb?
Yep. Yep. The whole thing is zone residential.
I wondered about the Farrington's,
Laurel,
yeah,
where they used to have the flower shop.
yeah,
What about that?
yeah, if it was,
Commercial.
commercial.
It was it was in there for so long that the zoning came after. So it was grandfathered, is what they call that. That was a grandfathered commercial use.
But
But it doesn't carry forward. Once it's out of use for commercial,
Conditional use?
for a year, it's gone. It's extinguished. So that commercial allowance is extinguished within a year after a year of non-use as commercial. So, yeah,
Originally it was both residential and
exactly.
commercial.
That's right.
Yeah,
They
but
changed
when-
the zoning to
When
protect
they
the
did the
park.
rewrite, they
Yep.
changed it.
Yeah, the idea was to try and protect the park. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be figured out. There's a lot of really important questions, a lot of really good details, but the most important point is all of our elected officials from probably, I don't know, I haven't spoken to the governor, but I'm gonna guess the governor would care to our city councilors, including the mayor and the state reps and the state senators, everybody in between wants to do everything they can to save the parks at all. Doesn't mean it's not a slam dunk, it's not simple, but it means you have consensus on that.
It's affordable housing and we can't afford to lose it.
What can residents do who don't live in the park? How can we support you?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
I mean, people do support you, but you're on a good track.
Well, yeah, I guess
Work with
just
Rock and
knowing
you
that
probably
the
could
public's
do it.
behind us
Yeah,
means probably more than
yeah.
anything.
That's good. Jake.
to be honest with you, because it's like, it's a tricky situation, because it is, it's leased land, we own our homes, and this can turn into something different. And in my opinion, I think it might be for the best, don't get me wrong, but it's a tough road to go down. You know, I mean, there's a lot of investment in there from a lot of people, many years. I've been there 40 years. We got folks here that have been there that much longer.
40 years. 40
You know,
years.
so it's more than just, it's our community.
Yes.
And maybe from the outside, people don't see it the same way we do, but it's like a city within a city. You know, we've always operated and maintained it ourselves.
Yeah.
No, we don't get snow plowing from the city, we don't get
No.
salting, all infrastructure is done within the park and operated by the park itself. So it's unique in that way.
Jay raises a point that I want to just add, so one thing too. They don't have access to two services that most, well not, many residents have. One is natural gas, they don't have natural gas.
No?
The natural gas never came into the park.
No.
Nope.
And they don't have telecom,
No.
right?
No.
Telecom didn't happen because when they proposed their installation, they wanted to install their PEDs in places that weren't really appropriate. For the simple fact, they're not considering the movement of homes coming in and out,
Oh, I see.
driveways, snow plowing.
They want a more permanent
So
structure.
they just wanted in and out as quick as they could and
Yeah.
not really care about where
Yeah.
they were putting that stuff. So that kind of was pushed off to the side. I was kind of there when that went on, so I have some insight on that.
You know what, though, that telecom issue, I was talking to a resident the other day who had to go to the library to use telecom.
Huh.
And right across the street is the Bagel, but they told me, oh no, the Bagel won't let you use telecom there because they don't want people sitting in their, at their tables doing telecom.
Absolutely
and
correct.
eating.
Right.
Yeah.
We have to do something about that because these folks have got to have access to the to a hotspot. Brian, can you take that back to the city? Is Keisha still here?
Yeah.
Take that back to the city. We've got to set up a hotspot right near where they are so that, I mean, the Miller Center is a good possibility. Is it close enough? If it was at the Miller Center, I mean.
Probably not.
It
Not-
depends
Yeah,
on
I'm not
some of the
sure what
elderly.
distance.
No, I don't think it would reach you guys. I don't think it would.
No, when I mean Miller Center.
Oh, they could.
They
Oh,
could
sure.
come, because I talked with Darlene Lawyer, who works here, and she said, sure, she said there's a conference room there, come, she'll help you get online, and if you don't have a computer, she's got a computer, or maybe we can come up with some extra laptops to be used here, but you've gotta be able to have access to the internet quickly.
Well, we do, we have Fairpoint. Fairpoint's in there.
Well, not everybody
And so
has.
isn't Comcast.
Comcast, yeah.
And if you want to go with satellite, you can do that too.
All right, but not everybody has
Right.
it.
No.
Right.
So
No.
if we had a public hotspot at the shopping center, at the restaurant, or at the very worst, down here at the farthest way, the Miller Center, would it be useful?
Maybe to 6 or 7 people, but not to most of them. I can think of 4 off the top of my head that are stealing from me.
And you're letting them.
Oh, I have a password in mine on purpose.
Roy, you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, yeah, I had to answer the lease question
Yes.
about
How to be
can
helpful.
residents help just write to Farrington's or contact the Farringtons and say, we're in support of keeping this park here and we're in support of
Actually,
creating a
yeah.
co-op for
If it's polite,
Farrington
you'll be
residents.
polite, because we gotta keep this civilized. We don't
Yeah.
want this
Right.
to go the wrong way.
Yeah.
Roy, it was my understanding that the family is
Totally
100%
supportive.
behind this.
I don't know, I haven't
So
talked
it
to anybody
isn't
since.
the family that we need to arm twist.
I mean, one thing they did, when they put it for sale, they did say sell as a trailer park. They
As a
didn't say
Right.
And it
sell
was
it and
negotiable.
bulldoze it, so they, at least their first foray into it is to keep it a park.
And the price
Not
is
to sell it
5
up
million,
when
but
it-
it says negotiable, as Jonah just said, right on the form that they had to fill
Yeah.
out, it says negotiable, so.
The price
Jim.
is negotiable, but trailer park is not.
Correct.
Right.
I just wanted to answer to Lee's comment, is, I'm on the Cable Advisory Commission, or council, that is a liaison between Burlington Telecom and the community. We're not Burlington Telecom, but I'll take your point to them at our next meeting and say, because that's one of the things we're talking about, is why aren't we making sure that everybody in the city can get the Burlington Telecom
Those who choose,
if they
yeah,
want it.
exactly.
So I will take that message back.
Lee, you weren't just focusing on just Jordan's Park, you meant everybody in the community have wireless
Right.
access,
But there
free
be
wireless
some-
access.
Yes.
There'd be, like downtown, you can go to the library, where can you go
Yeah.
out here?
Nowhere.
Well, Darlene
You
tells me
want to
now you can come to the Miller Center, but there ought to be something close to
We
like.
should be able to make a hotspot available actually
public
your
building.
trailers.
Yeah.
I mean, just like we could have it here, I would think that it is doable to have one, so that you do have those kind of services. I mean, that's one of the things that you definitely should have.
Maybe David Hockey would let them put it on one of his buildings, and that would shoot right across the park. Gene?
Well, you know, the question of what could other people do, one of the things is writing letters to the editor to talk about how valuable we all feel that Farrington Mobile Home Park has always been. I've known lots of families that have grown up in Farrington's, I know lots of kids, and they've always had sort of not a real clear feeling that they were as embraced, or the park was as embraced in the new North End. And I think that the outpouring both from all of us who are the elected officials, but it would be great for everyone in the park to really hear from everyone who's not in the park how valued this park is for us, and how valuable the people who live in the park are, and why it's important to preserve it and to protect it and to make it even better. And I think we need to do that more, because I think for a long time this is a population that hasn't felt as valued as they really are. So we can get off and do that.
So one question I had for the residents, I know with the co-op route, you guys will need to be electing a board of directors. Is that coming up soon? Has that been talked about? What's the sort of, is there a sense of
There's
that?
a meeting, good, Matt, there's a meeting on January
7? 7 p.m.
7 p.m. at Piper Senior Center. To start talking about just that issue. Who would like to be on the board? You have to have an election. It's definitely, it's a true democracy. And you only get to speak if you show up. It's like it is. Yes. Sure.
One thing I would just say is, I think that you guys obviously know that you're being listened to, as has been mentioned already, that all the elected representatives, councilors, and reps have been there. And for example, I didn't speak at the meetings I went to, I just listened, and I talked to many of you at the end of the meetings. And when Jay and others, particularly Jay, started telling me about the problem with the abandoned trailers, the abandoned mobile homes, and the issue with the ordinance in regard to the replacement ordinance, I talked to Brian, and we're working on that. So you know that we're listening. And
What can you do, Bert?
Well, I can explain that. The housing replacement ordinance was put in place it started in the late 80s and then finally got passed around 1989 or 1990. The idea was all these homes, if you look downtown, all these homes that were being converted to dentists and doctors' offices and lawyers and engineers and everything, they were taking over the core of our city in terms of the housing stock was being turned into other uses, and they were tearing down buildings to put in other things. So the idea was you're going to have to replace housing because you have such a tight supply. This was in the 80s, and you need to replace it in some way or another. So that's the challenge here is there are homes that are tight in terms of the location. They're small and narrow, and if you remove them because they're dilapidated, you won't be able to get another home back in there, at least not real soon. But yet the ordinance requires you to either put a home back or pay a replacement fee that could run as much as $25,000 or $30,000 to replace that. So it doesn't happen.
So you could do an ordinance that weighs that. There's another issue, and it's unpaid taxes.
Yes, unpaid taxes is another issue.
That's the other one.
Part of it that you would forgive the unpaid
Right.
taxes for the
Forgive it.
common good.
Yeah, I think the problem, Steve, is they're uncollectible because.
come out of the sale.
Yeah.
No, that's different. See, that's different. Lee's referring to when you are the individual homeowner, you pay a tax bill.
Oh,
Someone
okay,
tell
you're
me,
not talking
can someone
about
tell me
on the
about how
property.
much a homeowner pays? Is anybody?
About
It's about 400 a year.
ranges.
We
Three
pay about
something.
$1,000 a year for our,
$1,000 a year?
wow,
Yeah.
It
just for
ranges-
our home.
It ranges depending on the trailer.
Right.
Yeah.
No wonder we need property tax.
Oh, my goodness. In addition to the tax bill the Farringtons get for the entire
Mhm.
property.
Yes.
Yes.
So if homeowners haven't paid those taxes, that's the tax we're talking about. And there are a number of them who haven't
A
paid
person may have
quite
died.
a long time. They may have died, yes.
And so
It's
part of,
uncollectible, uncollectible, yeah, yeah.
all right, that'll be in the tax.
Yeah, right in the back.
Just to understand, the homeowners are paying a tax to the city, a real estate tax for their home. They're additionally paying either directly or through their rent,
The land.
property tax.
Yeah.
Right.
That is $1,300 roughly a year.
Not that one, that's the Farrington's bill. We don't, I can tell you, I don't know what that is right now, but their individual homes are costing around $1,000, it sounds like?
Every home is different.
It ranges
Yeah,
depending on the
depends on the home.
assessment.
What is the current per capita for the 119 lots? What's the per capita on the land tax?
I don't know that right now. I don't know what their annual bill.
With the sale of this property, it's likely that the value will increase on the grand list.
It may affect that. Yep.
So is it likely that the taxes, the land taxes will go up when this transaction occurs?
That is a definite
How
possible. I
much is
think,
that going to be if it's $5 million?
I actually, I'd be lying to say I knew the answer to that, so, it will all be worked out as part of the feasibility, is new sale price, talk to the assessor and say, what's this gonna do to the tax bill? And then that gets factored into that operating expenses I talked about earlier. You gotta list out all the expenses, that will be one of them.
So 117
Yeah, so they
people
will go up.
are paying $1,000 a year in taxes.
Every
And
lot
I-
is different, it
Yeah.
really
All right,
depends.
but I've just heard from Jay
And some
that
are
you do
income
your own
sensitized.
snow plowing.
Yep.
And
No,
you.
the Farringtons do. The Farringtons plow, don't they?
But.
The park
That's
provides
part of the lot rent.
plowing.
But not the city, right?
But what city services are they getting?
Nothing.
For
Water,
$100,000?
Fire,
Nothing.
police.
Police and fire, that's about it.
Water and sewer, though, we're not
That's
building
what
up
it
at the
is. It's mostly the
Farringtons are.
schools. Schools take up about 70 cents of every dollar you pay, so it's primarily the schools.
Yeah.
One more something else that might even make you more ill is that if you look at my mobile home, for example, off the lot, it's assessed at $3,000. On the lot, $11,900.
And mine's even older than that, and if I was to pull it off the lot, they'd laugh at me.
Doesn't have much value.
No, mine's in 1976.
It's always been on the taxes.
It has
It's
been.
almost like a double tax. You pay
Yep.
on your structure, they pay on the land.
We
Because
pay
the land
tax
is a
twice.
whole. They tax 11 acres, 11.3 acres.
But how can they tax a structure that's valued at $1,000? How can they tax it as if it was $11,000?
It should be depreciated.
Because they say that's what you could get out of it if you were to sell it. So that's
Within the
what-
park. If it's
Right,
located in the
but
park
that's
and you
how
sell
they
it, it has more
factor it
value.
in.
Has more value.
I would add one thing about the co-op experience and the nonprofit ownership is homes and mobile homes in those parks are more valuable than in investor-owned parks. They retain their value, they actually increase their value a little bit. And lot rents are.
15% more.
Yeah, values are 15% more, but lot rents are on average about $40 to $60 less per month on a nonprofit or co-op park than they are on the investor park.
I'm not running for office.
No.
It strikes me that these folks are paying way too much tax. A $200,000 house over in our area over there is paying between $4,000 and $5,000 worth of tax, and I get all the services. They're paying $1,000 plus $300, and that's probably going to go to about $2,000 with the sale of the property. I'm just big numbers. I'm only paying twice that, and I have way more land than they do, and I have way more living space than they do, and more services. This seems unfair to me.
Good point, excellent point. I'm only trying to preserve the park. I can't fix that problem, and I only got a few days left in this job, but I'm gonna keep working with the residents, on my own time, because this means a lot to me, so I'm not leaving them in the lurch. I'm gonna
Thank you, Brian.
volunteer
I would just like to add, the Milton did the co-op. The structure, the taxes that we pay actually don't go up on the structure.
No.
They didn't raise that.
That's right.
The only tax that might go up would be on the property as a whole.
On the
And
land
that would be
itself, yeah.
reflected to our lot. That's how they come up with this assessment to figure out if it's feasible or not. So basically, our lot rent ain't lot rent no more. It's there to pay their bills and maintain the park and operate.
The nice thing about the co-op is there's no, other than paying a property manager and a person to do the grounds,
Right.
there's no need for a profit, basically.
It's no problem.
There's no profit, so you can absorb more costs because you're not having to generate a return for an investor.
And being no longer leased land, a lender might be more apt to loan
Yes,
you money as well.
at a better rate, at a
So
much
you
better
can
rate.
get better rates.
Exactly.
So there's an asset in that aspect.
Right. But you made a good point, Dave. Very good point.
Brian, who's taking over for you, Julie?
Just put the ad in the paper today. I had to write my own ad for my own job. That's her own. Yeah. Well.
Are you retiring, Brian?
No. Got one in college and one still at VHS.
Ah.
I just came from his hockey game. They were getting creamed by Harwood. So,
He's getting energized.
Where are you
Yeah.
going?
I'm going to work for a group called the Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, which focuses on reducing energy costs. So,
Good luck.
yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
At least it's in Burlington. I don't have to go very far. So you guys residents, I think, need a round of applause for last week coming to this process. It's a stressful time of year anyway, it's the holidays, and to go through this right now, I felt like it was terrible timing. No one meant to do it this way, it's just how it worked, but.
You're brave, but it's an opportunity, it really
I think we
is.
got a couple board members right here.
Oh, I think so too. Definitely. This is a great group, and you know, it's like the NPA. It's like grassroots democracy. It's who shows up and who gets involved is, you know, what makes it work. And you know, it's really opportunity for folks to step up a little bit and do some stuff for their neighbors and themselves and improve the community. So it's great. Thanks a lot for doing it. We're there with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Shall we wrap it up?
I think I said nothing else about it. Well, I guess I have a thought, actually. I think if we could, I don't know if we can set up another meeting here, just separate without CDI. I think it might be beneficial if we can just get all the residents here and just make sure they don't have any other questions. Because in talking with a lot of people, they were confused about what a co-op was or a nonprofit. So I had the fortunateness today to at least give them some insight without trying to persuade them one way or another. But I think if they have another opportunity to be able to hear the difference between the two and the pros and the cons, I think it will be better served for that.
You might want to create a tear sheet with all that information and hand out to anybody who's interested. And then they take it home and have it in front of them.
So,
Yeah, CDOEO's got the mobile home project post, that's something they can do.
okay. You have any thoughts? What do you think when talking to people? Do you think they get a better understanding? Because you've been talking to
Well,
people.
even just bringing the petition around and getting signatures, people are so confused about what they're exactly signing for. Really, what we're signing for right now is asking for an additional 120 days. People are, you know, we've raised our hands and said we want to go up co-op, and I definitely hope we go co-op, and we probably will. But people are just like, I don't want to sign it because they don't want to commit. You know, they want a little more time. It's the holidays, it's stressful. People are worried that they're going to be living on the street.
That you're looking into the idea of going co-op.
Yeah.
So signing the petition is asking for time.
It's telling the owner that we're interested in pursuing our options that we have.
Yeah.
Which I believe we got 80 signatures at this point.
Between 75 and 80 that we think are going to be eligible.
And the minimum we needed was 51, so we have a little bit of a buffer.
And you definitely need that buffer because
Yeah.
you don't know which signatures actually are going to.
Well, we do, because I think the city assessors listen, compared them to make sure they were good signatures.
So that's the thing, like even with the state and the city and the park, they all had different information about really who owned the mobile home and what list we were actually going to go, which one was going to legally count. So, I mean, even just on that level, people were confused. So no wonder everyone else was confused.
Well, the meeting's on the 11th.
7th.
January 7th. So if we're going to do a meeting prior to that,
Or a meeting separate without CDI.
Well, I mean, it's not like CDI can't be there, I just think it'd be beneficial if we could, as residents, get together and just say, okay, what are your concerns, what is your confusions, let's try to clear this up, so everybody's on the same page going into that meeting on the 7th.
Second that.
CDI can be very helpful.
so what kind of time
Yeah.
are we talking, like next week?
Next week being Christmas,
Christmas.
and the week after
I know
New
that
Year's.
makes it tough. It's a short
almost
window.
January 7th.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Well, see, that's the thing too, because everyone kept saying, we have until the 22nd, we have until the 22nd, but all of a sudden, everybody wants to sign petition this week. It's like, wait a minute, you know,
Yeah,
how are you supposed to
they have to
catch
have-
people at home when they're Christmas shopping? You know, it doesn't
And the
work.
more resources you have there,
Right.
then you've got more people to ask the questions that people are going to be asking.
See, Kelly and I, we went down the list and realized there's 20 homeowners that didn't sign the list. And out of fairness to them, we felt the need to reach out to all 20, because at the end of the day, we didn't want anybody thinking, geez, I didn't get a chance, I wasn't asked. So at least everybody had the opportunity, because you don't want nobody to feel left out at this point, because they're not gonna wanna move forward, especially for a co-op model, because that's what a co-op model is. Everybody has a say, it's equal opportunity for everything, and if you start off this way, it's just gonna send a bad message of we didn't wanna do that, so. So that's why my hopes are maybe we can just get everybody together, and maybe just put it together, what you might do, get it all day, and everything. That's what we did.
We had them.
Right. We did a visual incentive as well in the evening, just to make sure these 20 people are aware of, hey, you haven't signed, do you want to sign? And obviously, some of them were hesitant, but when we kind of told them, oh, listen, it's just to secure the amount of votes we need to proceed, go forth, they were on board. But, you know, some of them had misconceptions, like, I don't have the money right now, because there was some talk about having to do a membership fee, because we had to pay a membership fee or anything, so there's a lot of confusion, so.
Well, if the membership fee is $5, I don't think they have a real point.
Right, what they say was $100.
It was 100 total payments.
Well, to become
You can break it into $5.
You can break it into payments if you want, yeah.
You have to have buy-in.
Yeah, you have to buy it
But
to
that
co-op.
comes after. I'm just saying the confusion was there. They thought they had to do it now, when they, in reality, they didn't. They were just needed to give a signature.
And we can do that in
Right.
installments.
So that's why I just think it'd be important to have another meeting and clarify all that, so they know that.
So do you think it would be?
I'm open for anything. I'm willing to participate in whatever it takes. I just don't know what's gonna.
We can do that ourselves.
You wanna just work on that ourselves? then?
Thank
You
you
need help
everyone
on it.
for
You need help on it.